guys, welcome back to another Sketchbook Doodles video. So, this video is actually not planned, that's why I kind of have the washes already laid out, or at least like some initial washes laid out. So, I was thinking that the last Sketchbook Doodles video from I think last week or something was going to be the last one for the sketchbook, but that's not the case. I decided that I wanted to show you guys the process of this one because it was something I'm not quite used to. It's like similar process, but the idea of it and the colors are something that I'm not used to. So I was browsing on Pinterest and I saw this really beautiful picture taken of this lady who's kind of facing the right, and she's like in profile, and she has like really bright lighting coming from like shining onto her back, and it's kind of like, it almost looks like a modern version of like an old-timey photo where it's kind of like sepia looking colors and it's kind of washed out. It's not like entirely monochromatic or anything, but I kind of lean mine towards monochromatic rather than what I initially thought I was gonna do. You can even see that I was testing out different washes here, but then I noticed that, you know, I didn't really like it, so I was trying to keep it into the more monochromatic side of things. So in terms of what I'm using the, well, I put the stuff in the little cards at the top, but I'm using the Stay Comfy sketchbook from LilyPichu as usual, and I'm using my Holbein watercolors, or majority Holbein, and then I'm going to switch up and move on to gouache, which I'll be using for the majority of this painting. And kind of the reason why I shifted what I wanted to do is because of my lack of confidence with gouache. So I was gonna treat this more like as an underpainting, so that's why I was doing a lot more detailing or paying attention to the light source and all that with the watercolors, because usually when I use watercolors and I use gouache, I usually just establish more like colors and like basic values, but I was being a little bit more precious with the paper and just like the overall piece with this one because I was going to treat it as an underpainting. Now I'm going to get very overwhelmed when I'm using the gouache, which is why I kind of stick a little bit more towards my comfort zone, and I don't think it turned out bad, but I think it's something I would like to revisit in the future, is like do an underpainting with such a more warmer monochromatic kind of feeling, and then doing a painting over top and seeing how the colors interact and kind of seep through. So for this one, like I said, I'm keeping it very monochromatic. I basically just keep mixing different reds, oranges, brown, a little bit of a peach color together, and just shifting it ever so slightly and making it darker and everything like that. So basically I'm drawing Masaki today. If you're not like too familiar who Masaki is, he is my florist OC. He's like my favorite OC to draw. You've probably seen him several times on the channel if you're not new. But yeah, I've always drawn him more like happier, more brighter colors, very vibrant, always with like pink or blue flowers to kind of complement his outfit and all that. So he's very much like my comfort character that I like to draw the most. But I kind of use that not as a crutch, but to ease my way into something new. So I like doing this with studies or anything I'm trying to learn. I will use my OC or pre-existing characters that I enjoy and put them towards my my studies and stuff to make it a little bit more enjoyable and a little less daunting, because I'm used to drawing Masaki, I don't have to think too much about like the character themselves. I can focus on something else, which in this case I was focusing on lighting the most and kind of capturing this kind of more moodier piece. But I don't push it as much as I would want it to, and next time I think if I ever do something like this, I do want to add more other colors. Like even though they might be muted, I wanted to try adding more colors next time, because I think that's something I'm going to struggle with, is finding like greens or even like his flesh color to be a little bit different, and trying to match it closer to with the sepia undertone, which I haven't done like underpainting since like oil painting sessions in my uni days. So yeah, and you can see like I was very, I don't know, even though I wasn't treating this one as like refined in a sense when I'm adding the colors and stuff. I'm kind of playing around and seeing what works, and if I don't like it, I blotted the page, or I will try to blend it out. So when I added that darker color to his face, I didn't really like it because I didn't really want to push the values for his hair too much, but then when I use gouache I'm going to do that. But I thought his face looked a little bit too much in shadow compared to his hair color. But in like later on, like I said, when I'm using the gouache, I'm going to be pushing the values a lot more. But I'm pretty much almost finished with my sketchbook. I think by the time you guys see this video, I'll probably be finished the sketchbook, and then hopefully either Wednesday's video or next sketchbook doodle session, I'll do a sketchbook tour. I think I'll do it as Wednesday's video so we can get that up and out of the way, and I can work on a new sketchbook and hopefully do a new first page for that sketchbook. And it's not like the sketchbook's not going to be very much of a surprise. It's very much like me using the same kind of sketchbook that I did last time, except for this time it's blue. Or not same as last time, same as this time, except for it's blue. So at least I'll be familiar what mediums I can use in the sketchbook, but I'm excited to try new sketchbooks in the future, just because like my favorite pen and some inks and stuff don't work well. Actually, I could probably try using inks in the sketchbook. I think that might be interesting. I haven't really tried it that much, but diluting ink might be very fun to do washes and stuff, just because I know more of them are more permanent. So yeah, as you can see, I switched to gouache, and like I said, like the hair got much darker, and as usual the clouds are having a field day and I'm not getting proper lighting, but that's another problem for another day. But I decided to switch over to gouache, and I think me trying to maintain this more monochromatic look with gouache was a little bit more difficult for me because of, I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't want this to be entirely monochromatic. I wanted to keep the warmth and almost like a goldeny yellow tinge to it, but every time you add white it was getting more like almost pinky, which was like something I wasn't really wanting. So I was trying to avoid that, so I kept adding oranges. I added a little bit of yellow and more of a warmer red into the brown that I was using, or kind of like brown and white mixture that I was using, as well as like it came with like a pale peach color, so I also used that as kind of like a cheat in terms of mixing, because I don't want to overuse the white every time. But for the most part, I really enjoyed painting this one of Masaki. I think it was a good exercise, and I was a little bit more painterly in terms of how I was treating the clothing, because usually when I'm painting with gouache and I'm doing much smaller pieces, I'm very much like keep things clean and I don't blend things as much, and or like even like layering the colors together, I make them very much like cell shading in a sense, except for like probably the hair. But with this one you can see a little bit more of like I tried blending a little bit, or I was trying to add similar values so that there's a smoother transition. I do not like the way I did the flowers. I should have looked up references for the flowers to get just a better overall shape and knowing where the values lay. But I kind of just drew up, I don't know what kind of flowers these would resemble. Kind of like peonies, kind of like roses. They're kind of like a mix of both, because I feel like 3 of them kind of look like peonies, and then the one on the very left looks more like a gigantic rose. So yeah. Not sure what else to talk about. Trying my best to keep the lighting source as bright as possible on the one side. Now, I did have fun adding these little white specks that you're going to see later. I'm not sure how fast this thing is going to speed through it, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Is that at the very end, I use a little bit of like the lightest color, which is kind of like the top right most side, kind of like that pale beige color, and I kind of add these little dots to Masaki, kind of like resembling those little dust particles that get captured by light and like by the camera and the lens and stuff. So I would add these little dots first, and then I got a different brush which I've used like quite a bit for dry brushing. So you would just activate your gouache a little bit on your palette, make it just like ever so slightly wet, and then pick up the pigment with your brush and basically dry brush in a circle around the little dot, and it kind of makes this little glowy soft effect on the gouache, and it looks really pretty. I've done it before with like acrylics, and I've done it a few times for like gouache paintings, or if I wanted stars to look like they're glowing, I would dry brush it. Just because I think it gets a better effect. You can definitely use something like pastels, like chalk pastels, to do this. I've definitely done that before for, I think, my Moonwalker piece. I've done that, but now that I know I can use gouache and I don't have to worry about like any debris or like dust coming off from it, I would definitely use gouache to make things glow now. It's just much easier, and it's like it won't rub off or anything like that. So for the most part, I tried to make sure that his face was fairly clean, as usual. I like making sure the skin looks smooth, unless there's supposed to be some kind of texture, or if there's like a shadow, if it has more like jagged edges. But everything else, I tried to make it a little bit more painterly and kind of more experimental, more so with the clothing and the flowers rather than anything else, and a bit of the background, I guess. But the hair is very much like just laying values side by side and just getting a little bit of the shape of the hair rather than, I guess, like playing around as much. I feel like this kind of shows, I feel like, my flaws of using gouache a lot more. So when I'm using gouache with colors, I play around using colors a lot more to make, I think, like visual interest or like texture to the piece. But as soon as I'm thrown into using more of a more like monochromatic or like single color palette, like one color kind of color palette, it becomes very much like too cell shady-ish for the hair, in my opinion. I think using other colors to brighten up like certain areas or to shift the hue kind of adds more visual interest, especially towards the hair, and it kind of makes it look more like shiny and vibrant. But I guess like shiny and like the vibrancy isn't what exactly I'm looking for when I'm working on this piece. Something I struggled with was the values, definitely, but I feel like that's what's good about doing like monochromatic pieces, is doing like values, and because you can see the values much easier if you're using like one color, like using white and like black, or like white and some other darker color to mix your colors. You can see like my palette where I was kind of mixing different colors. So like I said, it wasn't like entirely monochromatic because I was mixing in some blues to make it darker, like towards my paint, not towards like the piece itself. I wasn't adding blue, but I was adding blue to make my browns look more like black or like darker, to change, just to shift the hue and the value a little bit. But yeah, had a lot of fun working on this, and I'm glad I'm taped it off. It looks really nice in my sketchbook after I rip off the tape, which you guys are gonna see. But hope you guys enjoyed watching me paint like this. I would love to do more monochromatic pieces in the future, maybe of some Genshin characters or even my OCs, or like more of my OCs, I guess. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this, and I'll probably talk to you guys next time, hopefully with a sketchbook tour. And yeah, talk to you guys next time. Bye! Bye.